Hello, welcome back to this free video series. My name's Julian Bradley. Today we are going to be looking at interval recognition. Now this is an essential skill for playing music by ear. You have to learn to identify some intervals by ear. However, you don't have to master all intervals ascending and descending. In this video I'm going to show you my brief approach to intervals, because not all intervals are created equal. Some intervals are used a lot more than others, and in this video I'm going to show you the 6 priority intervals which most melodies are built of. So enjoy the lesson and I'll talk to you on the other side. Now, interval recognition is basically when you identify the intervals between different notes in a melody. So every time 2 notes are played, an interval is created between them, and we can learn the sound of these different intervals, and you can track a melody as it moves just by listening to the intervals between each note. Now there are 12 intervals that exist within the octave. There's all of these different intervals, and in most ear training classes that I've ever been in, there's been equal focus given to all 12 intervals. So we've spent as much time trying to learn the sound of the major 7th and the minor 7th as we have on the smaller intervals, the major 3rd, the whole step, etc. However, the thing is that in real life, most melodies will never play an interval beyond a 5th. After all, the idea when you write a melody is that the listener can sing back the tune easily, and most human beings find it a bit of a struggle to sing beyond a 5th. It gets a bit tricky up here. You have to be more musical to be able to sing some of these bigger intervals. So although there are 12 intervals that do exist, most music never jumps beyond a 5th in its melody, so that means we only really have to prioritize the intervals that are a 5th and smaller. And there's also another interval which rarely gets used, which is actually smaller than a 5th. Can you have a guess at which interval I'm going to say? Well, it is this interval. This is a tritone, and again, this interval rarely gets used, not because it's a big jump, but more because it just sounds very creepy. In fact, in olden days, this was known as the devil's interval. It just sounds very inhuman, very unnatural for us to sing this interval. So, for now we're going to focus on the intervals a 5th and smaller, excluding the tritone. Now, of these 6 intervals, some of these intervals are used more than others. I would say there are 2 intervals that are going to be more useful than any. If you can learn these 2 intervals, then you'll be in a very good place with your transcribing. And those 2 intervals are the minor 3rd and the whole step. A lot of music is built of just these 2 intervals, and that's because most melodies are actually based around the pentatonic scale, as you'll find out later. C, E flat, F, G, B flat, C. So all of the melodic shapes in here, all of the stepwise melodic runs up and down, are going to be minor 3rds and whole steps. So for that reason, I think you should start by focusing on these 2 intervals, the minor 3rd and the whole step. Now the way that you learn intervals is by singing them. So I would start by singing these 2 intervals, the minor 3rd and the whole step. The nice thing about these 2 intervals is they're also the easiest intervals to sing. It's actually no coincidence that most melodies use these 2 intervals, because even non-musicians can sing these intervals. They're like these bigger building blocks. It's sort of like using the Duplo Lego for the really young kids. These are like these big building blocks that, you know, a football crowd can sing, and even non-musicians can sing. Da, 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 da. Just focus on how this interval sounds, how big a leap it is, and go to the piano and practice singing it. So just play a starting note, da, 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 and then test your accuracy. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. We can do the same for the whole step, which is going to be the other most useful interval. Da, 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 da. And then test your accuracy. Da, 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 So you can do this for all 6 intervals. Start with the minor third and the whole step. After that I would go to the half step. Da, 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 da. Now a little tip, for the whole step I like to just sing up a note, and I found that if I don't think about it too much and I just sing up a note, I end up singing a whole step. Da, 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 da. Whereas for the half step I like to sing the smallest interval I can imagine. Da, 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 da. And when I sing the smallest interval I can imagine, I always end up singing a half step. So this is the technique I would use to practice singing intervals. Go to the piano or your instrument, play a starting note, and then focus on one interval at a time. You can go through the 6 intervals one at a time and just practice singing them from different root notes. But then you could get more advanced and just do combinations of the intervals. So you could start on C, go up a whole step, da, da, play the next note, then you could go up a minor third, da, 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 test your accuracy, then we could go down a whole step, da, 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 then we could go up a major third, da, 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 test your accuracy, up a half step, da, 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 smallest interval, and then we could go down a minor third, da, 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 da. And you can just do this for a whole sitting. You could do this for 5 minutes. That would be a good amount of time to practice this every day. And as I said, to begin with, just focus on one interval at a time. So you could spend the next week and you could spend one day focused on one interval. So start with a whole step, do a whole practice session of just 5 or 10 minutes, and just focus on the whole step. Go around singing the whole step. And then the next day we could focus on the minor third, do the same exercise, focused on singing the minor third. And then in 6 days' time you'll have done all 6 priority intervals. Now a little modification for jazz musicians is that you can actually practice improvising and singing the melody line that you have in your head at the same time as you play the notes. Da, 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 ba, 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 dum, ba, 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 dum. You can do this, you can go through proper chord sheets and just compose a melody and see how accurate you are at singing the note at the same time that you play it. Si da 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 ba 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 dum, ba ba da da ba ba da ba 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 da da ba 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 da ba da ba da ba. So that's it for this one. I will see you tomorrow in the next lesson, which is going to be about common melodic shapes. I'm going to share with you a very important melodic shape which will help you play music by ear. So that's it for this one, and I'll see you tomorrow.